Yes, Capitol Records, I have to cancel today's review. I can't review Sunshine Dream when it's raining. Do it anyway? Alright, I guess it won't be fun, but I'll give it a try. We've talked about probably the most famous of all the Beach Boys hits packages before, 1974's Endless Summer, which made them famous and popular all over again, exposing a whole new generation of fans to music by the Beach Boys. And naturally, when one thing's a success, you know a sequel's not too far behind. Spirit of America. Not as big a hit as Endless Summer, but a success in its own right. Going gold, making top 10 on the charts. But sometimes there's someone who's just a little bit late to the party. And today we're going to look at part 3 of this saga with Sunshine Dream from 1982. So we gotta start by giving some context. The Beach Boys in the mid-60s became very unhappy with the way Capitol Records, their big record label since the beginning, here's the Capitol sleeve, we'll talk more about this later, and they didn't like how Capitol was handling their finances, they didn't like how Capitol was handling their image, and kind of stifling their creativity. In 1966, shortly after the release of the Pet Sounds album, the group formed their own label, Brother Records. Most of the LPs at the time and singles and whatnot were still distributed by Capitol, but Brother was like the official Beach Boys company. This is important because after a lot of legal wrangling with Capitol in the late 60s over royalties and a bunch of other things, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know all the details, believe me, but somehow, somewhere along the line, control of the 1966 to 1969 Capitol catalog reverted to the Beach Boys. Therefore, although they had no say in these two sets, in 1975 they were able to spearhead a greatest hits package of their own, using songs from the late 60s and also from the 1970s when Brother Records partnered with other labels like Warner Brothers and Reprise and that kind of stuff. So the Beach Boys were able to kind of buy back some of their music, or maybe not even buy it, maybe just somehow receive it. Capitol couldn't use songs from 1966 to 1969 on these compilations, at least not album songs. Nothing from Pet Sounds, nothing from Smiley Smile or Wild Honey, nothing from Friends, and nothing from 1969's 2020. They could still use singles, and the single-only release Breakaway is featured on Spirit of America, and I don't doubt, yes, it was probably included as a rarity, but it was also probably included to give the Beach Boys the middle finger and say, hey, you think you own all your songs? Guess what? You don't. Who knows? The Beach Boys had a moderate success with this 1975 Good Vibrations, and they also spearheaded the subject of the last two videos, one episode split into two parts, 10 Years of Harmony, which showed off their 1970s work between 1970 and 1980 on the Brother label. Somewhere in between the early 70s and the early 80s, Capitol Records was able to get control of those late 60s tunes, those songs that they couldn't use before on these other compilations they could finally use. I don't know if something expired, that it automatically reverted to Capitol, or if they bought the rights, or how it worked. I don't know. I don't know all the legal details. I'm sure it was a drop-down, drag-out fight the whole time. And although the Beach Boys would work with Capitol in the future, I'm sure things were a little tense at least more than once. 10 Years of Harmony had not been a success. Indeed, the early 80s were not especially kind to the Beach Boys. 10 Years of Harmony is a really cool album. Indeed, I had to spend 2 whole videos on it. And it did produce a very successful hit single, the group's cover of Come Go With Me. But there was another single from the early 80s that was really the only other big achievement the Beach Boys had. And this was actually more Capitol Records' achievement than the Beach Boys. An edited version of several of their songs into one big song called the Beach Boys Medley, peaking at number 12. And it made sense with such a successful single, you gotta find a home for it, And what better way than finally getting part 3 of the Endless Summer trilogy, Sunshine Dream. So let's see how Sunshine Dream stacks up. Alrighty, so let's start off, I'll just read you the songs here. We've got on side 1, I Can Hear Music, Here Today, Darlin', Caroline, No, Aren't You Glad, and Good Vibrations. Flip it over for Wouldn't It Be Nice, Friends, God Only Knows, Vegetables, How She Boogalooed It, and There's No Other Like My Baby, which is misspelled as There's No Other Like You, Baby. On side 3 we have Heroes and Villains, All I Want to Do, Wild Honey, I'm Waiting for the Day, Cotton Fields, and Then I Kissed Her. And we wrap it up with Sloop John B, Be Here in the Morning, Bluebirds Over the Mountain, Keep an Eye on Summer, Do It Again, and of course the aforementioned Beach Boys medley, which was no doubt intended as like the showpiece of this album. I'll show you one of the records here in brilliant capital purple. Those purple sleeves that I showed you earlier go with this album to match it. Pretty cool, at least in the US. I think other countries use different colors. So pretty nifty, and we get a gatefold, we get 2 LPs, and so on. Can't argue with that. Now I will say my copy is damaged. You can see at the bottom it's all ripped out, but the records were in good shape. They still play just fine. This is a fun album to listen to, and we get some nice photos of the guys. You can see the damage there, the sun's missing his mouth. And we get a nice write-up from a fellow, Randall Davis, who has a little expose he writes on the Beach Boys. And he talks about how they started as teen music and then became kind of like experimental sort of things, and that this album is designed to showcase those experiments. Good Vibrations gets a big mention in here and how great it is. The Beach Boys medley is heavily promoted as, you know, a fun, up-tempo way to do it. He says they have a baker's dozen of hits, and he lists off the charting singles that he thinks are most important. Those being Sloop John B, Wouldn't It Be Nice, God Only Knows, Good Vibrations, Heroes and Villains, Wild Honey, Darlin', Friends, Do It Again, Bluebirds Over the Mountain, and I Can Hear Music. And he gives Caroline No a shout out as well. And he says, hey, this isn't just hits though, there's lots of quirky ones on here. Cotton Fields gets a mention. I should add it's the album version, not the single version. And Vegetables, and their cover of Then I Kissed Her is, you know, different offerings from the group. It's actually a really nice write-up. And seeing as how neither Endless Summer nor Spirit of America had one, I'm kind of glad they put one on here, especially because this would probably be a harder sell from the get-go without those instant hits like Surfin' USA, things like that. So one thing we have to say, my video on Good Vibrations was pretty short because this album coming out and 10 Years of Harmony coming out in 1981 basically nullified this Good Vibrations record from 1975 because everything on here had now been covered by 2 more up-to-date double LP collections. So this thing disappeared into the shadow realm for you. So Sunshine Dream, same artist as the previous installments there, doesn't focus too heavily on any one album. Pet Sounds has the most stuff with 6 songs, followed by 2020, which has 5. There are also 3 tracks from before 1966, so before the formation of Brother Records and all this legal and rights falderall. Those 3 are Then I Kissed Her, which was released as a single overseas. It was a huge hit there, and it's part of the Beach Boys live set, one of their most popular covers. Another cover, There's No Other Like My Baby, from the Party Sessions. That's mentioned in the liner notes as being recorded live at a Beach Boys party. We've heard that one before. And Keep an Eye on Summer from Shutdown Volume 2, way back in 1964, makes an appearance. So that's a nice inclusion too, and kind of helps to bridge that gap. We'll see later collections, and even a few earlier collections, that do a better job of kind of bridging the gap between their early stuff and their more experimental, their more complex things. Of course, Beach Boys medley, again, is the selling point. Did feature several older songs like Surfin' USA, Shut Down, and Fun, Fun, Fun. But this album, nowhere on the sleeve does it say, you know, hey, this medley includes, and then list the songs. It doesn't do that. Some releases of the Beach Boys medley I've seen do list the songs that are included. In the end, it's kind of a strange set because it has a lot of things on here we don't really see much, like Aren't You Glad, which has gained more popularity in the recent past, but at this time was probably, pretty much forgotten. How She Boogalooed It from Wild Honey, you don't see that too much. Be Here in the Morning, one of the few instances we see a song from the Friends album besides Friends pop up, at least at this point in the Beach Boys' career, and that's an odd choice too. Sometimes you see like Little Bird or something on a set, but not this time. All I Want to Do, kind of the Beach Boys helter-skelter there, their pumped-up sex rocker that they did. Not the only Beach Boys song about sex either, but definitely the most overt. It's kind of a strange addition, but I think it kind of works. And even something like I'm Waiting for the Day or Here Today, those Pet Sounds ones that don't get a lot of airplay outside of the Pet Sounds album. So it's an interesting set. I put this more in the same category as Spirit of America. Something that once you want to dig deeper and start going kind of past the hits and down a little bit, then you would want to pick this up. The problem is Sunshine Dream, despite containing that successful single, was a big failure, performing even worse than 10 Years of Harmony had, peaking around number 180. It's had a vinyl release, a cassette release, and an 8-track release, and no more. As far as I know, it can't be streamed. I don't think it got a CD release anywhere in the world, which is a shame, because it's got a lot of interesting stuff, and if you were just kind of getting into Wild Honey, or 2020, or Friends, you could maybe use this as a good jumping off point, but ultimately it's hard to find. I bought this for a couple bucks at an antique mall in California, and I've certainly got my money's worth of airplay out of it, and then some. In the end, it's kind of a fun, different release. I kind of wish it had been more successful, because I think like a cool 3, album box set would have been a really nice addition to the Beach Boys catalog, or some kind of special 3 CD release or something, but sadly probably never going to happen. By today's standards, this is pretty much obsolete and out of date. And the early 80s, again, still were not kind to the Beach Boys. Their album offering the following year, Rarities, crashed and burned, and we won't see a big Beach Boys comeback until 1985 with a very successful single called Getcha Back. And we'll pick up again with our greatest hits packages with 1986's Made in USA next time here on Betamax Blocker's Beach Boys Greatest Hits Retrospective. Please leave a comment below if you have this or have fond memories of it, or any other comments you want to throw out there. If I made any mistakes involving the legal situation, or you have extra info that could be helpful, please do put it below. Till next time, my friends, go out there and catch a wave. We'll see you later.